All right, here we go. OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker up on TSN Plus. For all 3 hours, Bryan Hayes, Jonas Siegel of The Athletic, and there he is, Michael DiStefano, Al's brother, a champion. Great to see you, partner.
It really is.
Great to see you. You look like a new man ever since the two of us crossed the finish line and put together what was one of the great seasons, I think, in gambling history.
I think so. I think it's very comparable to what Tom Brady did in the Super Bowl against the Falcons.
Yes.
We were down by 9 games at one point. That's the equivalent as 27-3, in my opinion.
I agree. 28-3. It was even worse. It was even worse. And don't shortchange Brady and Belichick, and don't shortchange Hayes and Bros. So it's a big day, Jonas. You must feel absolutely elated to be in the presence of greatness. Isn't it great? Isn't it great for you to be in here today?
Is the word nauseating or nauseous? I can't decide which one. At these little hats on the table.
Yes, these hats are so beautiful. Look at how beautiful these hats are. I know Joe from the Bridge. I was on with you a couple of days ago, and these were shown to the world online. And Al's brother, you have yours. It looks marvelous. We will be wearing them later. And Luke's coming up in 90 minutes. And we're not going to pull a Philadelphia Eagles here. We're not pulling a Nick Sirianni. We're not pulling a Saquon Barkley, although Saquon, it kind of sounds like he'd rather play and try to pursue the record. I was thinking the other day, we take a knee. Just take a ceremonial knee, give them an immaculate week, let them have some wins. But I've changed my mind on that. I think that's loser mentality, loser behavior, and I want to beat these guys down. I want double digits. We're up +6, I believe, right now. I want +10, if not better than that. So we will be making picks. Tremendous information, gut instinct coming together at 5:30. And between now and then, we'll talk a lot about the Leafs. You're going to love today, Jonas. You're so lucky to be in here. It's really going to become a very obnoxious.
It's going to be called the Pepto-Bismol show.
Yes, it's going to be an obnoxious tour for Al's brother and I. But we got the Leafs in action tonight. We got Canada in action tonight. And I don't feel great about either scenarios, quite frankly. I mean, the Leafs are a completely different story, and they beat the Islanders the other day. And I feel good about them likely winning tonight. This Islanders team is terrible.
Yeah.
They've been good on the road. Doogie just had some tremendous information himself. The Leafs have won 4 of 5 on the road recently. But Matthews remains out, and he spoke yesterday. Didn't really say anything of substance.
You don't think so? I thought he actually did.
Okay, why don't we play the clip? Because I want to get into this, that Auston Matthews remains out. He's not going to play tonight. I don't think we're going to see him for a while. Is that your read on it, Jonas?
I don't think he plays until next week, at earliest.
At the earliest, he'll play next week. That
would be my guess.
Your guess, your informed guess. That would be my guess as well. It does sound as if it's completely the ball's in his court.
Yes.
Like the way Berube phrased it, like he'll let us know when he can play.
Oh, I hate that too.
That's basically saying you go do your thing, and whenever you want to join us, you can join us. And he's in one right now because the season has not gone well for him, yet the team continues to win games. They're sitting atop the Atlantic Division. Here's what Auston Matthews had to say yesterday about his status, about the injury, and about, I guess, what we can predict the rest of the way.
Do you feel like this is something, Austin, that with the appropriate amount of rest, you will be able to put behind you at some point this season?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope so. That's obviously the goal. It's tricky with these things sometimes. It's a physical sport, it's a contact sport, so, things happen out there sometimes. They're out of your control, so just try to manage it as best as I can and that we can, and we'll just go from there. It's been good progress throughout this week. I think it's always a good gauge of, getting into practice and seeing how you feel in that and the competitive aspect of drills and stuff like that. So, a lot of positive signs. Like I said, just take it day by day and, hopefully just keep progressing and, see where we're at maybe later in this week.
All right, Jonas. Your read on that was, because you were there, you were in the scrum.
Yeah, I was asking some of those questions.
What did you take out of it that felt different or felt more, allowed people to feel more informed in terms of what's going on with this guy?
So the fact that he mentioned not knowing if he's going to be able to get beyond it, that's something I've been thinking about, that based on what we know about this, this has been going on since training camp. As far as we know, he tried to play through it, couldn't, missed 9 games, 3.5 weeks, went to Germany, came back, tried to play through it again. Whether the cross-check itself in Buffalo was the tipping point, he kind of alluded to it was part of it, but not the only thing. So we know he was battling it before. We can see it. You can see he's not the same.
He's laboring out
100%.
there.
He's not
laboring.
as quick. He's not generating as many attempts like that he normally converts on. His shooting percentage, all that stuff is down. So it kind of feels like this is going to be a thing that he is going to have to just continue to play for. He mentioned playing through pain, playing through discomfort, like all that stuff. I didn't totally know. So yeah, like I feel like I'm a little bit better informed, but my reading of it, based on what he said and based on how this is going, it's just going to be a year-long thing, and he's just going to have to play through it.
Yeah, and exactly. And listen, playing through it in January it's not a concern. You don't have to worry about it. He's not going to play. It's all good. They're still going to win games. They have won games. His first absence, they were really rocking. This one, it's been rockier, right? Without him, it's been rockier. And at some point, you're going to feel the absence of Auston Matthews. That is going to happen. And I think we're in that stretch. January is going to be a really busy stretch. You're going to feel the absence of him, especially against the better teams. Not necessarily against the Islanders.
No.
But when you play elite teams, you're going to realize this guy's not out there. But Berube had said prior to that Buffalo game where he took the cross-check, Berube was on record saying he's still hurt.
That morning.
Right.
Yes, exactly. That morning. So I was of that impression that this is something that was going to linger for quite some time.
Yeah.
My concern is now he's putting it out there that now you have to brace for it all season, which means into the playoffs. Ultimately, that's the comment that matters here. If it is going to continue to linger in the playoffs, that is incredibly concerning. I was already getting to that point.
Right.
Just on the outside looking in. We don't know what's going on with this guy. I don't see the purpose of him giving the update if he's not actually going to update what is going on.
But he did update.
But he didn't update in terms of what he's actually dealing with.
That's what I mean.
Which
He
he's
didn't
not.
learn anything new.
He doesn't have to. Again, we've been down this road. We've been talking about it for 3 months with him, and it's not just Matthews. It's anyone that goes through any injury in the league. They do not mandate any transparency whatsoever. You're right. He did say, "I hope it's not like this." But that's still, we don't know if it's going to be or not.
I don't think he knows.
He may not. So, again, at this point, it was an update that gets people riled up. I don't know if it benefits anybody. And what I was I thought it was an opportunity for him to come out. And if you're not going to speak on it, don't speak on it. And he's made it clear he doesn't want to. He's not going to.
He doesn't want to address what it is.
Exactly. Which I have stated many times, I think is kind of crazy that this is the most popular athlete in the city, the captain of the Maple Leafs, the highest paid player in the league, and no one has a clue what's happening.
Yeah.
I think as it goes on, it becomes even more ridiculous, but so be it. Again, not his issue because the league doesn't mandate anything. But I was waiting for him to come out, and I think this would be in his best interest moving forward. If I were in his camp, say, guys, I'm not going to give you answers on this. Like, he's made that clear. Matthews is not going to tell you what's going on. He's not going to give you many answers. When I play, I'm going to play, and then I'll address how I'm feeling when I'm playing. But come out as the captain and say, I want to talk about my team. I found it interesting
That's
that
not how
didn't
it
happen.
works.
But
Well,
it should work that way. Like,
So-
you're the
so wait a
captain of the
second.
team.
But what's he going to say?
Do you not want to hear what he has to say about his team?
But
how they're
that's-
playing?
but that's not
He's
how-
the captain of the team.
That's not how journalism works. You don't come out and say, I'm only going to, well, actually, that doesn't.
That's exactly how the Leafs operate.
But I wouldn't operate like that. He doesn't get to tell me what I can ask.
But why would you not want to ask him about how he feels about the team if he's not going to talk about himself?
But he did talk about himself. Like, the fact that he's playing through pain is like, I didn't know that. That's not great.
You didn't see him playing through pain,
I didn't know if
Jonas?
it was pain. It just looked like something I mean, you guys can see it. Like, something is holding him back physically.
Oh, 100%.
He is not
He wasn't
himself.
skating nearly as well as we've seen him skate. Like, this guy had no breakaway speed whatsoever.
Yeah.
Like, there was a game a couple of weeks
Explosiveness
ago.
is just not
gone.
there.
It's been completely gone. And you could deduce whatever, back injury, whatever you want to say, but you could physically tell. So I don't know if it makes you feel better that now you know for fact he's dealing with something. We still don't know what it is, and we're just left to kind of think, oh, it may be X, Y, and Z.
Well,
but the problem is
go ahead.
that we just don't know. And we don't know how long it's going to be. So I'm with you, Brian. Like, it didn't make sense. If he was going to come out and play tomorrow, okay, come through, you could talk about it. But if he's not going to play for another week and a half, maybe 2 weeks, we don't know. Maybe it's even going to be another month. We have no idea when this guy's going to be ready to go. What was the point of yesterday?
Well, I think
You guys don't understand. That's not how this works. He practices. Media want to talk to him. He talks. That's how it goes. Those are rules. That's how it works.
But even when you're on, like he's on the
Well,
injured
that's not
reserve
true every single day.
No,
So let's not pretend like that's not
Right.
that's not how it works, John.
Never been denied.
Technically, the rules are if you take part in practice,
Yeah.
you are supposed to be available to the media.
Do
Does
the
that
Leafs
always
operate
happen?
that way?
Not all the time.
Of course not. They
But
don't.
it's better for them to do this. Like I don't know why you'd be against
No, what
them,
I'm
like,
saying is I think the questioning about the injury and stuff now is just a complete waste of time because he's not going to give you anything.
he did.
He's
okay.
What did he give you, Jonas? You knew he was
He
injured.
does
You know
not-
he continues to be injured.
He is now.
What he told me, what I heard from that was, I don't know if I'm going to be a big player this year. Like, we'll see.
Yeah.
Which is very panic-inducing.
That's
but there's nothing
revelatory,
beyond
you know?
Scares
that.
the hell out of me.
I get it, but I think we already knew that based on the fact that this guy's not playing again. He went to Germany and he's not playing again.
Yeah.
Like there's something seriously wrong with this guy.
Yeah.
I think if anything that came out of it, the details of it, was that he basically admitted if they target me and get me, I'm in big trouble. Like his comment of, I can't control what the other teams are going to do, and I'm paraphrasing, effectively indicates they could get me and put me in a bad place.
Well, I
What do
mean,
you
we
think's
saw
going
the
to happen
cross-check, right?
And the
game one of the
cross-check,
playoffs?
exactly.
What do you think's going to happen game one of the playoffs?
And that's the whole point, is that it could, that is what is being projected here, and I think it's reasonable to do that this guy's whole season is really in peril, even if he's playing. Like if he's physically in the lineup, is he going to bring enough to the table to really be able to perform at the level you need him to because he's your best player?
But you'll remember in 23, they advanced to the second round, right? That was the year he was hurt.
Didn't have a great year that year.
He was hurt.
Yeah.
He played through injuries that whole year. He had 40 goals, 45 or 85
Based on
points.
his standards, he didn't have a great year.
It was
It's
a
relative.
based on everyone else's, it's a great year.
Absolutely.
But that was the year they actually advanced to the second round. The difference was their team was deeper. They had Ryan O'Reilly as their third line center, and obviously they still lost in the second round, so it wasn't enough. Can they go on a long run if he is this? I don't know.
Yeah, and
I don't
again-
think it's impossible, but like it's
No, it's
just
not
that
impossible.
much harder.
Teams have done this before, like had to go on deep runs. I think in 2002, Sundin missed a ton
Yeah,
of
there was
time.
the
did,
Al
yeah, he missed the
McCauley
first
steps
two.
up and
Yeah.
First 2 rounds?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like it's not unprecedented, yet this is a team without playoff success. So it
Yeah.
feels like everything has to align for them. Again, you don't need these answers right now. It's January 2nd. They don't play a playoff game for 3.5 months. So we'll see how he is come that point. I'm just saying, I felt like this as the captain of the team. I'm curious what he thinks about the team. Like why you don't think people want to know what Auston Matthews has to say about?
We've heard
how-
that throughout the year. Like, what do you want to know?
When
Tell
has
me,
he talked about
pretend
the
I'm
team?
Auston Matthews. What do you want to ask me?
What do you make of the way your team's playing?
Oh,
What do you
we're
make of
playing
John
great. Yeah,
Tavares?
it's great. John's like having.
So
a
why
great-
ask him
But,
to
like,
come out? Then why ask him to come out?
to talk about his injury?
But
he's not
if he's
playing.
not
Like,
going
this-
to, he doesn't talk to you guys. He doesn't say anything.
all right. Like,
But we're going around in
I'm like
circles
Abbott,
here.
you're Costello. Like this is.
I understand that, Jonas. But what I'm saying is it felt like an opportunity for him to be like, I'm the captain of the team. I'm never playing. I'm not around. Here I am. Let's talk.
But they just
like I'm
going to
give you my answer on where I'm at.
He's just going to give a stock answer. You know, I wish I was out there to play with the team. I think they're playing well. They're getting their chances. You know, we're winning
that's
games.
boring. Like that's all he can say. Like, what's he going to say? That's going to be so interesting.
You don't think
Man, he's going to be like, we need another center. Like, have you seen our? Like,
I'd be curious to get his take on the World Juniors. You're an American. Are you watching? Did you ask him about the Four Nations? I'm not talking about you specifically. It just feels
No,
like
you-
there's
you know
more
what? I
there
wish I would've
that I'd
asked-
like to
Nations
get
won.
into there with Auston Matthews.
I
The
wish
guy
I
was-
would
I
have
wish.
asked that, but it was very impromptu. Like I didn't know he was going to be speaking, so like I hadn't spent all that time thinking like, what am I going to ask him? But that, I mean, I can't see him playing.
That's a
in
big
40.
question mark.
I mean, it is, but like, who cares about? Like, I don't know.
He cannot play in that tournament.
He's not going.
I mean, it's just clear cut. He can't do it. Like you can't have the season he's having where he's missed. How many games he missed now?
This
24
will
games.
be 16. I think.
Yeah,
16.
so he's played in 20. Yeah, whatever it's been, and he's never looked like himself.
No.
He's laying the framework here for a season that's going to be chock full of rehab and grinding and trying to feel better about himself. He's the highest paid player on his team. You're also, there's a PR element to it that I'm not sure this would be something that would be in his wheelhouse or he'd be thinking of, but I think you got to be careful with it. Like, if you go play for the States,
You can't do it. It's just
and
a
you're telling
PR
Leaf fans,
nightmare.
I can't play for the Leafs.
That's terrible.
You cannot do it. Like, it's
But if he
clear
comes
cut.
back,
He
but
can't
let's
do
say
it.
he comes back and we're, you know, you said possibly next week. Like there's that game against Carolina that maybe some people
Or
are
the
circling,
Thursday, yeah.
or the Thursday is the game that he comes back. If he's back in January, like it's perceivable that he could be ready to go a month from now. Like I think it depends when he returns. to if we can have that conversation or not. Because if he's not playing all the way through, and
well, obviously if he's not playing, he's not going to be there.
Yeah,
but if he looks good in the next, he comes back and he looks good, he starts scoring, has 7 or 8 goals in the next 10 games. You don't think that's
it's not the Olympics. Like, it's just like some made up tournament. Like, I just can't see it.
Well, the one thing I would say is that there hasn't been any international hockey that he's been allowed to play in for his whole career. Like, and that's I feel for Matthews, I feel for McDavid, I feel for a lot of these guys who have been screwed over because there hasn't been best hockey.
Yeah.
So I can understand that he would have a drive to play, should want to play.
And he would probably be the captain of the team.
I would think he's definitely the face of the team and likely the captain of the team. It would be a huge honor and a great opportunity. But I just don't see how, based on what he just said, if he's telling people this is something that is likely lingering for the year and I don't know if I'm going to get back to 100%, you can't put yourself at risk with a tournament like that.
Their roster deadline.
You just can't play.
Their deadline for when they have to let everyone know, hey, this is who's coming. And if Matthews can't go, who's the replacement? They got to announce the replacements. Like, I imagine the PA said, okay, if you're going to have replacements and we're doing this tournament, you got to let us know. Because if not, you got to know, like, okay, we're going to Aruba, we're going to Mexico, whatever you're doing, you're going out. Like, that's the week off that they have. But if you got to go and play in this tournament, you got to have time.
Of course, there has to be. They're not. He can't pull out a day before, especially
100%.
if it's lingering and you know it's an issue.
Like, I'm curious if it's in the next couple of weeks or not. Like, is there going to be a run up where it's like, okay, you get back next week, now you have 2 weeks to see how you feel, and we'll kind of circle back then if you're the general manager of Team USA.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you, Els, brother. I don't know. I mean, I would assume it's probably in the next couple of weeks. We're talking about a tournament that starts in 5 weeks.
Yeah.
But I don't think he'd want to come out and make that announcement yet either because he doesn't want to cross that bridge
He
yet.
wouldn't. If I had asked, he would say, "Yeah, we'll get to that when we get to."
Yeah, he's not going to give you an answer on that. I hear you.
So you think he should just never?
I just feel like he's made it
is what you're
clear that
saying?
he's not going to give you details on what's going on. I hear what you're saying. I guess he said something technically original. I didn't learn anything because I always figured that was the case.
As he confirmed our
clearly-
assumptions.
He's fighting through something. Yeah. It's not good. Surgery's not apparently on the table, right? According to Chris Johnston and others, and I don't think Auston has brought it up. But I guess I'm just not surprised by the answer. And my point, and I guess I'm not making a sound one, is now you're the captain of the team and you're not playing, but if you're going to speak to the media, I would expect him to want to speak on his team. And I think there's a lot of Leaf fans. Like, why would you not want to hear from Auston Matthews about what's going on with the Leafs? Isn't that the role of the captain?
But that would require someone to ask it. Like, I'm not really that curious to know what he thinks about the state of the team. Like,
so who makes you curious about, like, who nobody can start talking about the Leafs that would interest you at all?
No, that's
like, where would he rank on your list of, wow, I'm curious what Auston has to think, the captain of the team, about how the team is playing? Or team-related conversations.
I like to ask something to learn something. I just don't know that. All right, I know what you're saying.
You don't see any value in asking the captain about the team. I got
like he's not playing. Like, ultimately, he's gonna have to fall on the sword.
But that's the point. I guess what I'm saying is this would be his opportunity to actually breathe and say, like, I'm not in the fight, but let's talk. Like, I know it's not in his nature. I get it. And I'm not sure it was in the nature of, like, Sundin. I don't know who would necessarily set up shop and be like, but it feels like you could maybe gain some sort of positivity out of this if you're Auston and say, I'm going to direct this away from something I'm not comfortable talking about.
But imagine that.
Because I don't want to talk about my own health. He's made that clear. Let's talk about the team. Let's talk about what's going on with this group.
Problem is that they're not playing that well. So, like, what is he really going to come out and say? It's like, yeah, we're 2-3. We're sub 500 since I've been gone. We haven't been able to score a whole lot. We've been giving up a lot of chances. Like, he's going to go out there and just rip the team and he's not out on the ice? Like, that, I think that's the problem. Is I don't think you're going to ask him how he's doing. He's going to give you a stock answer. If they're playing well, he's like, yeah, Mitchie's stepping up. You know, John's playing extremely well. Sure. But they're not winning games, and it's not
they're leading
great.
their division, though, Els, brother. Like, let's not pretend like they're the Rangers.
As a whole on the season, yes, they are. But if you look at the last little bit since he's gone out, the team has not played very well.
I wouldn't disagree with you.
So your PR strategy is, if they ask you about the injury, just change the topic and start saying, I don't want to talk about that, but I want to talk about the way the team is playing.
I mean, what's the point of talking about the injury, though? He doesn't want to talk about the injury. He's forced to go out there because you guys asked him to, and he's at practice, so he's like, I'll come out and give you a chalk answer. But I think if someone were to ask him, hey, how about the team? You're the captain of the team. I think he'd give you something. I think he might get some engagement out of the guy. I mean, I'm curious what he has to say about the team. He's Auston Matthews. I'm not saying ask Connor Dewar for a sit-down and give me the full breakdown of the Leafs history. The guy's the most important and popular player on the team, highest paid guy on the team, the captain of the team. His season has been, on an individual level, effectively a write-off. Like he has never looked like himself. He hasn't put up big numbers, yet Mariners... John Tavares got 19 goals.
Yeah.
Been his teammate for 7 years.
Willie's
what do you make of John
race?
stepping up? There's a positive. Wouldn't you say?
I'm going to invite you down to practice one day, and you can ask.
I'd love to have Austin on the show.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Invite.
That'd be great.
I say that he can come on whenever he wants. I'm not going to pepper him on the back because he's not going to answer it.
Right.
But what do you make of? We're almost at the halfway mark here. What are we thinking?
Big picture, not nitty gritty.
You're the captain of the team. What do you make of what's going on with your club?
Let me ask you guys,
think that should be like mandatory for the captain.
So boring.
That's boring.
Let me ask you this.
Asking Auston Matthews about the team he plays for
How
is
does
boring.
this change? If you're the front office, you hear this. You already know this. Does this change your approach to the trade deadline at all?
I think it's a legitimate question why they're not contemplating the long-term IR move. Why are you not thinking Kucherov, Stone, work your way around the long-term IR, put him on it?
Ridiculous.
Why is that ridiculous?
You're going to sit him for the rest of the regular season?
If he's not going to be at 100% at any point during the regular season, how can you not at least entertain the idea? Why would you not entertain the idea? Think about how beneficial it would be to have $13.25 million on the board.
Do you know how hard it is to sit for I don't know personally, but from talking to players, to sit 2.5 months,
Very
2
difficult.
months, 1 month, and then
Did you see
start
Nikita
playing in the
Kucherov
playoffs?
do it?
Mark Stone?
Did you see Nikita Kucherov do it?
I did.
How about Patrick Kane when he did it?
Okay.
Didn't Vegas win the cup the year Mark Stone did it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe Tampa did as well with Kucherov.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's ideal,
No.
but don't you have to start thinking about it? You're already into January at this point.
I don't think that's going to happen.
Unless surgery.
I mean, have you looked at this?
You didn't answer my question. You just said you didn't think it would happen.
I would not do it. I would not touch that. No.
You don't see any benefit
No,
to that.
I don't.
Okay.
The rest isn't really. He said it's helping a little, but we saw him come back from 3.5 weeks.
Well, 3 weeks and 3 months that's a different ball game. I don't
think you can miss 3 months and expect him to be you want him to be back to what he is, right, at his best.
Ideally, obviously, that's in the best.
I don't
case
even
interest.
think that is that going to get him back to what he was last year.
I'm not sure anything will though at this point.
Then I'd rather.
And in reality,
if I'm them, I'd rather have him because the standings are pretty close. They're not that far off from being in the wild card.
Yeah,
Tampa's coming.
Tampa's got a bunch
tight.
of games in hand.
Yeah, you just got to be careful. You can't assume this.
You can't, but again, when it comes to his scenario and how he's feeling and how he's going to be playing, I think it's completely unpredictable at this point too. I mean, who's to say he doesn't return next week, take another hit, and he's out for another month and a half? And ultimately, he's going to control it. Matthews isn't just going to put his hand up and say, I'm going on long-term IR. That's not going to happen. And if he's going to play, if he wants to play, he's going to play. That's the way it's going to happen. But I'm saying if I'm in the background, I'm at least contemplating every possibility because you asked the question, how does this affect what they're going to do moving forward? You got to have a concrete answer on what this guy is. And what
I don't think you're going to have clearly, they don't have a concrete answer. I mean, listen, you referenced Berube, no timeline. You'd love to have a timeline. We don't know. When he's ready to play, he'll play. That's it. I just wonder, if now you look at your team and you say, you know what, we have to get someone better than X. Because, maybe Matthews.
David Camp.
Yeah, or better than. Yeah, exactly. Your number 2 center right now when he's not playing. Maybe you need someone better. You look back to last year, I remember arguing about this with you. And you were like, man, maybe it's the year you just kind of
And they should have in retrospect.
And this is why, because you just never know if your team is going to be healthy. You just don't know.
Well, yeah, you can never predict the future. I mean,
but
obviously.
I remember arguing with you
because I didn't think they were a good enough team.
I know, but
they weren't.
I remember one of my things I said to you is you can't assume you're going to get this Matthews every year.
Well, exactly. Now, again, we don't have to revisit the conversation from a year ago, but the point I was making last year was I didn't think they were good enough to win a Stanley Cup. I didn't see any trade that was going to be made that would put them in a position to do that. And
do you see that now?
Well, I think a healthy Auston Matthews changes the complexion of this team. I do think with Tanev here, Ekman Larson here, if their goaltending is healthy, which it wasn't in the playoffs, again, something you couldn't necessarily predict. But also when we were having that conversation, Ilya Samsonov was a disaster.
Yes, you could have foreseen that you might need another goal.
Am I more comfortable with who they are today than they were last year? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And I think everyone probably is, and I would think Brad Treliving and company are. But, the assets and what you have available and who you're chasing and what you're willing to pay, these are complicated conversations to have.
That's the thing, too. You have $13 million to, if you do the LTIR.
That's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
There's also not a lot to even go out and, what do you have to give up? You got to give up Easton Cowan, Fraser Minton? Yeah, you don't have a first-round pick this year, so you got to dig deep and go 2-3 years down the road.
That's the issue. Is what do they have in the farm system? What do they have in terms of picks to even go out and get someone of significance? Like if Brock Nelson's a guy that people are buzzing about, Brock Nelson's going to cost you a pretty penny to get. Mm-hmm. He's going to cost Yanni Gourde. That's not the impact player you're talking about.
No.
Yanni Gourde's not changing anything.
No,
good player, depth player, not an impact player.
Good third.
Not a top six guy. Not even.
But you're
close.
not trying to get a top six. You're trying to.
But you are though. Well, if you're saying that you can't have David. You're saying you need a second line center.
Someone who can at least elevate and step into a top. Like Yanni Gourde's not going to give you that. But a Brock Nelson,
he could
go back down the Ryan O'Reilly train. Those guys can give you competent two-way third line center roles. But then also in a pinch, an injury occurs, move up and play 2C.
But see, I know you two. You're not going to be willing to get in the game. You're going to be like, that's off. That's off.
Off limits.
Off limits. That's off limits. That's off limits.
Well, but it depends on who it is, though. It's difficult to have these conversations without knowing who we're talking about.
Fair.
Like if you're, again, if you're talking about a guy who's got no term left.
Who's the top ad in your opinion right now? If you were out there on the market, you haven't looked into it yet.
No, I have a list going.
Yeah.
Are you gonna?
I'm not gonna.
Give us your number one guy.
Ryan O'Reilly and Brock Nelson.
Who's your number one guy?
Would be two of the top guys, I think. I would love to bring Ryan O'Reilly back into the fold. That would be a player I would have some significant interest in.
I would be reluctant to do that. I mean, 2 years ago, I don't know where his wheels are anymore. I don't know. Nashville is a mess. It's not his fault individually, but he's still got what left on his deal? 2 years?
2 more years.
I don't know. I thought he was really good for them.
Not to be here, right? So
exactly. You got to ask yourself how we feel. Now,
Berube being back, you don't think that changes the equation a bit?
It could.
Want to Conn Smythe with Craig Berube?
It could. Yeah.
I think I would love to bring him.
Okay, so hypothetically,
yes.
So you call up Nashville, you call up Barry Trotz, and you say we want Ryan O'Reilly. What are you prepared to give up?
I mean, Ryan O'Reilly's it's interesting because he's got a little bit of age to him, but I probably would think about moving out from a Fraser Minton. I think I would put that in.
That's a start.
Probably, I think Easton Cowan would be my only guy who I would not want to move out for Ryan O'Reilly.
Okay, you got to keep going because that's not enough. Fraser Minton ain't
putting together a package here?
Yeah, keep going.
You think it's going to cost that much for Ryan O'Reilly?
Fraser Minton?
At that age?
Yeah. If I'm Barry Trotz, I would hang up the phone if that's your offer.
Minton, second round. They got, a second rounder this year? You going to take more than that?
Yeah.
Take Nick Roberts. I'll go Joe from the Bridge. Take Nick Roberts.
Exactly.
Why am I doing that? They need centers.
Unless they want to get out from underneath contracts and feel like we've messed up here and we got to change something. I'd have to look at his contract too. He might have a no trade, no move.
I believe he has no move.
Yeah. So that's another thing. That may be completely off the table. He may just not want to come back here.
Yeah. They wanted to sign him.
So I don't even know if O'Reilly's an option.
Maybe not.
That's the problem. I just don't know.
Is Lou Lamoriello going to deal someone of substance to Toronto? I don't know. Not for nothing.
Yeah, you'd have to pay, of course. And there's other teams that also want these players.
Yeah.
Nazem Kadri's a name that comes up, but Calgary's back in a playoff spot now.
That and the Tree Living situation. You talk about Lou. Tree Living's in the same boat.
So there's your answer, Jonas. It doesn't even matter what you're willing to pay. If the player's not available, it doesn't matter.
I know. So you have to get what's available, right?
Well, why? But that doesn't answer your problem. If you're just getting someone just to get someone,
you can't
what does that do for you?
But the option is to not get someone and be in the situation you were last year where you lose in the first round. It's great, you kept everything.
Yeah, again, though, if it's a guy that you don't think fills the hole, what are you accomplishing by getting somebody?
Someone better than what you have. Like even Yanni.
Are they? Like, how good is Yanni Gourde? No, I don't hate Yanni Gourde. I just think you have to be realistic. What do you think Yanni Gourde really is?
A third-line center. Better third-line center than what they have now.
Okay.
Correct.
That's not going to cost you that much.
Definitively. Yes, it will.
For a third-line center?
Yes, because every team needs centers. You look at what prices were paid for guys like that last year. It's first-round picks. Adam Henrique cost a first-round pick.
Yes, I think Henrique's a better player than
Alex Wenberg last year cost a second-round pick.
Mm-hmm. I would say that's where he is.
Yeah.
Maybe a second-round pick.
Okay. But like if multiple teams need him and one team is like, we'll give you a first.
Well, obviously, then that's where you have to make a decision. Is it actually worth it for you to do that?
Well, and this is where we diverge.
I know, because you would go all in every single year. For
until you win
But they've won one round, though, Jonas.
Yes, exactly.
Like at some point, you have to have faith in the guys that you've actually built and committed to say, you guys need to go do this for me. Like that's what I don't. At some point,
not a way to manage.
Yes, it is, because they did their heavy lifting with Tanev, who came in, who they couldn't pay the price for last year. Dallas paid, right? Now you got him. Ekman Larsson was a guy that they've paid. Stolarz is a guy as a better backup option. Like, I think the heavy lifting was done in the offseason. I think in a perfect world, you add, sure, but if the guy's not there, the guy's not there.
But the guys
are
Or
if it's going to cost you an exorbitant price that you're not comfortable at paying, then you got to be. But you have to be smart there too.
But do you want to get to the end of the year losing the first round, losing the second round?
Do you think Yanni Gourde is the determining factor of a first and second round?
Because maybe in those situations, that if I'm the coach, instead of having to use John Tavares, or like last year, they had to use John Tavares, all these difficult matchups, defensive zone starts galore. Now I can give those to Gourde, and now maybe I can get John Tavares starting on offense more. And maybe now instead of scoring 1 goal, he scores 3 goals. And suddenly you win that series. And then you go on and suddenly Marner has a series, Nylander has a series. And then maybe you go on a long cup run. I don't know.
Okay. Yanni Gourde.
Edmonton traded for Adam Henrique. And I remember I was like, you can't pay a first round pick for Adam Henrique. They went to the cup final. Granted, their best players were outstanding.
That's a very important detail.
Yes.
That Connor McDavid
But they still
and
said, we have a hole on our roster. We were going to try to improve it.
Mm-hmm.
And we improved it. And they did. And then they brought him back. And it hasn't gone as great for him this year, but still. Whatever.
So, I hear you. Listen, perfect world. I'd love to.
They were playing Pontus Holmberg as their second line center. He's like one of the worst offensive players in the league.
Day. Yes, I understand that.
As their second line center like 2 days ago.
Yeah, well, and again, in large part because the big guy's out. I mean, obviously, Matthews
You should
out.
have better options than Pontus Holmberg.
But that's why, you know who will be that at some point? Fraser Minton.
But he's not right now.
I understand that, Jonas, but this is why and I'm not going to go around in circles. When you trade away picks and prospects every single year, then you get there and go, why don't we have anybody? Because you keep trading them.
But you know what also happens? You think a prospect is going to be something he's not. He doesn't become it, and you're like, man, we really should have given up that guy.
That's
Timothy Liljegren. Oh, man, can't give that guy up.
I thought he was the greatest thing in the world.
Not to me. I've never said that.
All the numbers were that the guy was the greatest.
No, those people and me did not agree.
Didn't you write about Topi this week? I thought I saw you.
No, that was Josh Cole. I'm not. No, that guy's
Nimala, superstar.
He's not.
Well,
that's the thing. He's not even anywhere. He's got no.
That's a perfect
trade
example.
Value or anything nowadays.
Prospects.
Wait a minute.
Like they're shiny and nice, and most of the time they're just not.
All right.
Anything of substance.
So you're not going to reveal any of your list.
I can pull it.
You don't have to. I don't want to
make
make you uncomfortable. I don't want you to put in a bad
You're
place.
not gonna make
I don't want to do that. But I'm curious what you're thinking.
It's not like they're not trading for superstars.
No, of course not. They're not available.
Right.
Okay.
Like they're good players that help.
Jonas's list, 6:30.
If you're the GM, you're just like putting your feet up on the table, relaxing.
I think at some point, if you've committed all this money to all these players, you got to look at them and say, guys, it's on you to. You got to do it yourselves. Like at some point, you have to do
getting it done for you.
But that I guess is where my concern is, Jonas. If you think they've gone this long without playoff success because of the Pontus Holmbergs of the world,
I don't. No,
exactly.
I don't.
It's
But that
because
doesn't mean-
Austin and Mitch and
things
Willie
can be-
and John and Morgan, they don't step up when they're supposed
I
to.
wouldn't
Well, they
include
kinda did
Morgan
that
in
last year,
conversation,
though.
but-
Morgan's been a really good player.
But those are two. You can have both things. You can improve the roster, and you can also say your best players need to be better. Both things can be true.
Ideally, that is the case.
I mean, the Kansas City Chiefs have gone out and gotten players to help. They traded for DeAndre Hopkins. They
Do
didn't
not
just say
compare the
Mahomes.
Kansas City Chiefs
They didn't just say Patrick.
to the Toronto Maple
good
Leafs.
luck.
Though. Please do not compare the two. Let's get serious, Jonas. All right. Mark Masters.
I'm exhausted.
We're only 30 minutes in, man. I was low energy coming in here, too. I've been off for a week. All right. Canada, Czechia tonight. This will be uplifting. We get to talk about Canada. Glass half full moving forward. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Overdrive continues. Brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, Jonas Siegel, Al's brother in here. Mark Masters, live from Ottawa in about 25 minutes. On FanDuel, Canada is a massive favorite in this hockey game tonight. Yeah. And I understand the way books have to work because Canadians are going to be betting on the game.
Are you going to hedge?
I don't see how you can put money on Canada. Like, I love being Canadian. I love this country. I am the proudest Canadian.
It was at minus 450 earlier today.
That's you can't pay that kind of juice.
So
no.
Is that what you would do? Hedge and then you're winning every way?
It's probably the smart play is to sprinkle on Czechia, and then if Canada wins, the patriotism comes pouring out, and you're so happy for them. But the way they've played, how could you possibly feel confident that they're going to win tonight?
You can't.
Like, it feels like a coin flip game tonight, and that's saying something in the quarterfinals on home ice. That's what it is, a coin flip game. They very well could win the game, and this tournament has always been two separate tournaments within one. Mm-hmm. The group stage is about Boxing Day and New Year's, big games, right? Finland and the U.S. on New Year's Eve, beating up on inferior teams, stacking the game sheet, and then it's about the elimination round. And the beauty of this tournament is it really starts tonight in terms of, how you're going to be remembered. So Canada has the ability to completely rewrite itself and rewrite history and completely reestablish their reputation. But if they lose tonight, this team is going to be remembered for a long, long time, and none of it will be positive.
You're already hearing, text chains have been all over it. Twitter's all over it, this might be the worst team that Canada has sent in a very long time. And, you look at the numbers. They've scored 5 goals at 5-on-5 through round robin. They played Latvia and Germany.
Yeah.
Usually they've doubled that number in those one games. They scored 10 goals against Latvia last year, and they only have 5 through 4 games at 5-on-5 against those teams. They can't score. They can't set a penalty box. It's just been a parade to the penalty box for these guys. And it's really disappointing because it's supposed to be a tournament that, Canada always, if not dominates, is, top 2 team, them and the Americans, and it just has not been the case this year. It hasn't really been that fun to watch them, to be quite honest with you.
It's disappointing. Yeah, it is, because they offensively, as you just pointed out, there has been nothing.
No.
Nobody has stood out. They don't have a guy who scored 2 goals in the tournament. No one is popped out. That Schaefer kid is near the top of their points ranking. He played 1 game.
Played 2 games.
2 games. He played 2 games. And then you look at the way they've lost and the fact that it's on home soil. Playing in Canada is supposed to be a massive home ice advantage.
Yeah.
But it can quickly flip when you run into a situation like this. And that is my concern for them tonight, is that I think there's going to be a lot of nervous energy in that building. I think the team has got to be very nervous. And I think they're also going to be hyper-focused on being disciplined, which will take away, in large part, what allows them to have that home ice advantage, which is
aggressiveness
and physicality and intimidation. You're playing a Czechia team tonight. This should be a scenario on Canadian soil where the first 10 minutes is bedlam. Mm-hmm. And Czechia is thinking, we have to survive here because these kids are going to come out and they are going to be all over us. Dump and chase, running people through the boards, going to the net hard. And it feels as if that has flipped, where it's Canada's got to survive the first 10 minutes.
I was watching the game the other night, the Germany game, and I thought Gord and Mike did a really good job of explaining, detailing the looks on some of the players' faces and how tight they looked in the warm-up. And Mike brought it up throughout the game, the crowd was ready to, burst, and they just never kind of capitalized on it. And eventually the crowd kind of, tapered off as the game kind of wore on. You know what I mean? They didn't take advantage of the fact that they were at home, and I don't know, it'll be more pressure-packed tonight because it's elimination, right?
Well, that's a good Czechia team, too. This is a good squad. I think they lead the tournament in scoring. They got 25 goals through round robin, and that goaltender is no joke either. It's Michael Rabel kid. He's a good goaltending prospect for Utah. I think he's got, a 9.26 save percentage in the tournament right now, a 2.47 goals against, I believe. Is a good goalie. So a team that's been struggling to score, you're running up against one of the best tendies in the game. Now, Canada's got one also. Carter George has been outstanding, right? He wasn't necessarily the problem the night against the Americans. When you're shorthanded, you give up 3 power play goals. It's tough. It's obviously tough. But like that's the thing. And they lost last year to the quarterfinals to the Czechia team, did they not? If I recall, didn't they lose last season in the quarters to this team?
No. Was it last? I don't know. You've put me on the spot, House brother. I can't remember.
I could have swore it was last year, and like this is the worst Canadian
2 years ago was in Halifax.
and a better Czech team.
Right. Yeah, no, well,
last year.
I mean, that's the scenario that they played themselves into by losing to the Americans is like, look at what U.S. is doing to Switzerland today, like just blowing the doors off a team. Historically, that has been the case for Canada. You get a layup in the quarters where you know you're into the medal round at a minimum, but now you've got a very difficult scenario on your hands.
Would you play McKenna more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I was watching that game, I was like, man, every
100%.
time he comes on the ice, I notice him, but he doesn't seem to play that much. I was just looking up. He plays like 14 and a half minutes. Maybe
Yeah.
boost that. I don't know.
Well, I mean, one thing I would say is they've been killing so many penalties.
Right.
Is
Last
he
game
doesn't kill
especially.
penalties, so he's not going to get on the ice there. If it's 5-on-5, he should be playing a ton because I believe he is their most offensively, dynamic player
Yeah.
for sure, and he has looked good to me.
Yeah.
Like watching him.
But it's always like that 13th, like you've talked about it, like the young player.
Yeah,
he's
got a
always kinda
cage on,
yeah,
not
he's always-
trusting him.
Yes, exactly.
That's the bigger thing is I don't think Dave Cameron completely trusts him.
Yeah, but they always seem to end up being the best player by the end of
That's
the
it.
tournament.
Yeah, you're like, why didn't they play that guy
Like
more?
Bedard 2 years ago, he was kind of that guy. And then last year, the same thing with Celebrini. And now you've got this kid, and it's like eventually just take the reins off and let him go. Because that's what that's what he's there to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he is so dynamic. Like this guy's got unbelievable hands. Like
Oh,
that
yeah.
goal, like
He's tank worthy. Like you know what's coming.
yeah.
Next year, he's not in this year's
No,
draft.
next season.
Next season, there will be, from camp onward, who's going to get this kid.
Yeah.
And, listen, I think we're all pulling for them, clearly. The beauty of a tournament like this is you don't have to be objective. You don't have to be a journalist or anything like that. You can simply just root for them. Right? Right, Jonas?
I'm not covering them, so sure.
You don't feel comfortable rooting for Canada?
No, it would be like if I was covering them and I was like, well, we have to do this.
Yeah, I don't think you need to go that far necessarily. I wouldn't put myself in the room. Like, I'm not saying
Right.
that necessarily, but I can, it's, and I get it that it is more difficult if you're covering. I know Bob McKenzie said it forever that he used to get emotionally invested in the games. He's like, I got to take a step back here and just be like, I don't have anything to do with it. I'm going to call it the way I see it. I think that's fair. But on the outside looking in, it's, I'm nervous for them. Like, I'm nervous for these kids because it's Ottawa, it's Canada. If you lose in the quarters, you've already had a terrible group stage, relatively speaking. You just
crash
don't
and
want to go
burn
out that
tonight.
way, man. You
No.
just don't want to go out that way. Mark Masters in about 20 minutes. Luke Wilson coming up at 5:30. We'll get into all the storylines leading into Week 18. We will have picks as well for Week 18. We'll get to that. And Saquon Barkley not playing this weekend. At home against the Giants, he's 100 yards behind Eric Dickerson, and he's not going to play.
Hate it.
Sounds like he wants to, but the Eagles coaching staff not going to allow it to happen. So we'll get into that more as well with Luke. And the Leafs, of course, in action tonight. OverDrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, Mark Masters from Ottawa ahead of the quarterfinals for Canada tonight. It was Czechia they lost to in the quarters last year, 3-2. So let's hope for a different fate for the Canadians tonight. Mark Masters will join us. Luke Wilson coming up. College playoffs continue. NFL playoffs. By this time next week, we're gearing up for the playoffs, man.
Yep.
And what I've noticed in my time off is the Josh Allen MVP conversation has taken a bit of a turn, is it not? Now
It
all of a
was like
sudden, Lamar
slam
Jackson.
dunk, no question. And now it's like, maybe
3
it's
weeks
Lamar.
ago, it was proclaimed it's over.
He was minus 900. 3 weeks ago, he was minus 900.
And now
Where's
what
that
is
now?
he? Yeah, look that up. Because I thought I saw it was something like minus 150. He's still the favorite. He's still minus 400 on FanDuel? Okay, so that's
It was
still
down
pretty
to
substantial.
250 last week.
Yeah. And then he had the game that he had
the
against
game.
the Jets,
Yeah.
and people are goofing on Rodgers, and it puts you back into the, and I think the Pro Bowl announcements helped him as well. Only a couple of Bills made it, a bunch of Ravens made it.
No Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
15-1 and doesn't make the Pro Bowl.
Yet you look at his stats, you can understand
Yeah.
why that's the case.
Yeah.
someone did a compare and contrast. I think it was with Aaron Rodgers, actually. If you look at the Mahomes stats and Aaron Rodgers stats, player A, player B, you wouldn't know who was different. You wouldn't know who was who.
Which team was a 15-1 quarterback and which was what are they?
4-12.
4-12.
Yeah. You wouldn't know the difference. Now, there's obviously more context that comes with the numbers because, he's.
Jets are from behind all the time.
Exactly. There's
Chiefs are ahead.
a lot of different reasons why Rodgers might be padding stats
Better
or whatever
defense.
it is. Yeah. Exactly. And Mahomes in a scenario where it's like, let's just run the clock out, whatever it is. But the Chiefs have won a lot of one-score games, a lot of close games.
If you guys both had a vote for MVP, who would you pick?
Allen.
Both Allen?
Yes. Yeah. You?
I think so.
He has been.
Yeah.
It's not that Lamar hasn't been great.
It's just like I look at Derrick Henry. I'm just like, he doesn't have Derrick Henry.
Well, that's it. Like my ultimate, I won't call it a mic drop, but I always look at it and I say, if you took Lamar Jackson off the Ravens and you took Josh Allen off the Bills, which team's offense would suffer more? And undoubtedly, it is Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah.
So we look at most important player, like most valuable player, he has the most value to his team.
Yeah. And his numbers have been phenomenal. He's cut down the turnovers substantially.
Yeah.
Like Lamar has been great. Lamar Jackson's phenomenal, but I think Allen has been better than him this year. And I think it will go Allen 1, Jackson 2. Saquon Barkley is now out of it.
Will Mahomes
Joey
be in the top 5 or
no?
I don't think he will be. I think Joe Burrow will be ahead of Mahomes.
Joey B is the guy getting a lot of late love.
And yet they may not make the playoffs. They need multiple things to break their way, including themselves actually beating Pittsburgh on the weekend. We'll get to that more into hour 2. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app.